1. I work at a large company in corporate escalations and risk. I ended up with this dick smack who ordered a treadmill, and it only got as high as me because he was flipping out on every person he spoke to, swearing, physical threats, making fun of and mocking some of our agents. Because English is not their first language, they have an accent, inappropriate innuendos and comments, etc. Because it hadn't been delivered yet. It had just been ordered 3 days earlier. If anyone's ordered large workout equipment with full delivery and assembly, then you know typically a third party handles the freight, not necessarily the direct company you order it from, and it arrives usually within a week of it being ordered. They source it out. It's stupid, but it is what it is. We received confirmation from the delivery company that not only was it delivered, there was a signature on the file and a photo of the delivery. He says he never got it and they rescheduled a bunch of times, blah blah. I was getting real sick of his shit and the way he was treating my people. So I told him to stop swearing and to talk to the agents respectfully, otherwise I wouldn't be helping him any further. He was yelling because I didn't get back to him for 2 days. I was out of the office due to a death in the family and had my out of office on, which said I was out with no access to emails. I receive an email from him telling me not to email him my feelings, and me being out of the office with no access to emails is an embarrassing excuse, regardless of the reason. He went on and on. Don't tell me how to speak. You should have had someone follow up with me. I had no idea you were out. I have cameras. No one delivered anything. I don't give a shit about anything. You didn't refund me right away and purposely made me wait for my refund because you were mad, etc. I told him the refund would take 1 to 3 days to process, and I'd notify him once completed. Our team didn't even process his fucking refund until the day I returned to the office, still within the 1 to 3 days, by the way. And I notified him as soon as I got in. I would have been out of office anyways for those 2 days due to my work schedule, and I don't have anyone to delegate to. The buck stops with me. There's no get me your supervisor, or if you won't do it, get me someone who can shit, because there is literally no one else. Obviously, I have a boss, but they don't deal with this. It's like that meme when they ask for the manager, and the same associate spins around and says, "How can I help you?" He received a full refund with shipping refunded, over $2,000, and got his fucking treadmill and was still acting like this. I sent him the bitchiest yet professional email I've sent in a long time, explaining that I simply requested he speak respectfully, since we're adults and no one made him wait for his refund. That my out-of-office provided an alternate contact while I was out. He definitely got the out-of-office message, since he sent me 7 emails within those 2 days, so there was someone he could have reached out to if he really wanted an update. The other agents can actually read, so they'd be able to see the refund wasn't done yet, and update him accordingly at least, even if they have limited visibility otherwise. I deal with angry, escalated crazies on the daily. I almost always have them eating out of my hand by the end of it. I'm very good at escalating and making sure the customer's issue is resolved in a way that makes them feel heard, validated, and that they received a fair resolution. But boy oh boy, he got under my skin. To put the cherry on the sundae, he sent a survey. Haven't gotten mine yet. Can't wait. And the other agent below me had the balls to email him and be like, "I'm here to make sure you're 100% satisfied. I know the previous agent was unhelpful." I want to smack the ever-living shit out of him. Way to make me look like an asshole. And rant. I just needed to get this off my chest, and people who aren't in customer service don't always understand the kind of restraint you have to have with some of these people. I hope his treadmill malfunctions and he smacks his face so hard off the floor he forgets his mama. Have a great weekend. 2. I work for a tech company with a contract for a big, scary government agency. We manage multiple systems at level 1 and triage escalations to other contractors for higher support for tens of thousands of users across the country. My calls can range from "I forgot my password" and "Skype can't find my camera" to troubleshooting backscatter X-ray rigs. The Wi-Fi on this ship in a specific ocean can't connect to the VPN, and configuring air traffic control tower access. At least once a week I get calls from civil servants who forget where they work. This one was the latest. I had just finished raising a ticket to external troubleshooters about something serious, one where I had to call through to their management because it would affect industries in that part of the country for the next 72 hours. The moment I was halting my phone after to take lunch, I got a call from a mid-tier dumbass.
I need bigger email. Excuse me? I need bigger email because I need to send so many important reports and documents, and they're just so big and they won't send.
How big are these emails?
I don't know. They're clearly too big, and it would be nice if I could send them all at once.
Then a 3-minute story about whatever he was working on. During that time, I checked his account for locks and holds, any recent issues with the message exchange. It all came up clean. So just for fun, I looked him up on the internal directory. He came up flagged as one of the kids in the graduate program. I've seen them before. They get hired at a higher salary entry level, and some extra individual responsibility, then after 2 years, they automatically get promoted to management of a small team, without any greater responsibilities. Alright, I can see that's very important, but how big was the last email you sent?
22 megabytes, and that's a small one.
The agency-wide mail send limit is 26 megabytes. No one can send any emails bigger than that. But something smelled fishy. So I remoted into his machine. Sure enough, there was an email with a 22 megabyte spreadsheet attached, and a 13 megabyte PDF and a 15 megabyte document. He also had a signature block which used chunky external fonts and a full resolution banner. A blank email was about 5 megabytes for this guy. I'm waving the cursor around the attachments. You're not allowed to do this. You need to send each of these as separate emails.
I told you I need to send them all at once because they're really important, and they're already late because Lookout kept crashing when I'd send them one by one.
What?
I need to send all my files for each.
No, the part about Lookout crashing?
Yeah, it's been happening for weeks. You should know about it. Every time I attach something to an email, it crashes when I send it.
This was exactly what had been happening during an agency-wide incident about a month before. Every branch was given instructions on how to resolve it, and every civil servant was expected to follow these instructions within 48 hours of it going out. So, while still remoted in, I searched for the email and there it was. It was unread. I opened the email. If you'd have followed this 4 weeks ago, you wouldn't be having this problem.
I don't read general mail. I figured one of you would come fix it eventually.
CYA mode activated. I make sure to include his exchange and the fact that he refused to do the fix for weeks in my ticket under the non-public notes for managers and other techs. Then I took him through the 15-minute process of doing the fix, where I was interrupted by the following exchange twice.
So when this is finished, I'll be able to send bigger emails, right?
We'll get to that. But I'm sure you can agree that to send big emails, you need to be able to send emails at all, right? When I sent him on his way, he still didn't understand the issue with the mail send size. Even after putting him on the secure file transfer portal specifically for agents like him, sending sensitive files to external actors, he kept asking me what it had to do with giving him more email space. That particular civil servant never finished the graduate program, and had an unexceptional career without promotion in the service, moving to another agency shortly after this call. 3. I work at a customer center for a health insurance company. Does that mean I, one tiny person, have any input into changing the policy that this giant health insurance company dictates? No. Does that mean customers try to change the policy to exactly fit their exact wishes, even though they chose to be customers of our company? Yes. So this one guy calls. Mind you, this is the last call of my day and easily the worst. He calls because at his pharmacy they suddenly changed his medicine to another supplier. It's the same medicine, just another company made it. He already, right off the bat, tells me that he should be informed of this. Why? You aren't a doctor and it's basically the same medicine. I tell him, okay, I'll go check out what is up and put him on hold, but I'm required to. I look at his medicine, and the pharmacy picked it up for him because our medicine policy changed. We picked a cheaper supplier. We do this because then we don't have to give these costs to him, the customer. It is insured. If the pharmacy gave him the other one, we'd have to actually charge him for it. This whole thing is like a policy for us, and because of this, he doesn't have to pay for it. Other health companies don't operate like this and would always charge both medicines. It is essentially an extra service we provide so the customer can either not pay or pay for their preference medicine, that is the same medicine but another supplier. Do I like that my company can just change the policy of what medicine is free or not? No. However, they work with experts and the government to choose what is cheapest for us and for the customer. If the company wouldn't do it, he would pay more for his monthly payments and for his medicine. Also interesting to know is that if he has any bad side effects because of this medicine, which almost doesn't happen, he can go to his doctor and get a prescription for his old medicine. He will have to pay more for it, but not the full thing. So I come back and try to tell him all of this like I'm required to. Before I can even finish all that I mentioned above and finish informing him, he rudely interrupts, "Whoa, whoa, whoa," and is outraged that we changed his medicine. It's the same medicine, different supplier. Then he goes on a huge rant that his stomach is extra sensitive and he needs the right medicine. I couldn't even tell him yet that he could get the old medicine, and how dare we change him without informing him? Why didn't he ask in the pharmacy as to why it was changed? The pharmacist knows even more than I know about this whole ordeal. Then he goes on, and how we can just dictate his medicine, and that we use him as a lab rat to what's cheapest to us, and how dare we try to make money in this company? Because everyone knows how easy it is to have a business if you aren't going to care about money, right? Then he goes on that he wouldn't have minded paying for the medicine instead. So I finally get to tell him that he can get his old one back easy, just go to your doctor, piece of cake. You think you'd be happy to hear this? No, he again goes on the same rant about how it's unfair, and then he goes into the, "Why didn't you inform me of this change?" That's when I'm starting to get annoyed. So I told him, "Sir, the policy could change like every 3 months. We can't inform every one of our millions of customers about every little change that applies to their situation. You can read our conditions on our site, and you could easily have asked your pharmacist what changed too." He goes on his rant again. How dare we try to make money by picking another supplier of the same medicine? What if it might just give him horrible side effects or kill him or whatever? How dare the company try to make money? I kept thinking this, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was not aware you're a pharmacist or a doctor." But that would be considered rude, so I can't say that, obviously. All during this whole ordeal, I started winning him off to our complaint services. The people there can do much more than I can as customer services. As long as it's fair enough. The customers don't realize that we from customer service cannot change policy, we can only inform him of what is happening. Ranting to us will not change what is happening to you. Your only way to do within the company is through complaint services. He never really replies to any of this, always straight up ignoring it. If I bring this up, going on and on about his rant, and normally I have to give the customer one warning like, "I can't change this, so if this is all of your questions," and they then only have the same problem that I can't change, I can hang up on them. However, this one boiled my blood so much that I kind of broke that rule by just saying, "Okay, well, I can't change this situation, and I already referred you to our complaint services. If everything is clear to you, I wish you a nice day." And then straight up clicked him away while he was still talking. This was already on a day when I got called an asshole by another customer, and had also been told that I have been customer unfriendly by another. All I can do is inform the customer. If that information just happens to not contain what you want, then it isn't my fault. I can't change my answer. I don't have that power. 4. A long time ago, when IT support was a mix of procedures, processes, and a Wild West system of implementations, a user called the help desk, while in one of our smallest offices, think 2 desks, and asked for me in particular. I thought this odd as I'd not dealt with them personally before, but any level of odd on help desk would be outdone by the next call anyway. so I didn't raise any red flags back then. Bless my innocence. The user explained that they submitted a ticket for this issue, but as it was month end, they needed a bit more urgency. They can't print. Can't print from their laptop, can't print from the PC in the office. They need to print one of the reports along with an invoice to a customer. It's urgent. I run through a few basics, like checking they're printing to the correct printer, etc. And whilst checking my notes, remember that this office is one of the few with a print server, still to be decommissioned. I couldn't ping the printer. Is it switched on? Blah blah. Yes, all working. I'll have a poke around the server, as it also has a domain controller and a few other services that might need checking anyway. No central management, etc. back then. I couldn't log into it, no response on RDP, I couldn't ping it. I couldn't ping the office router. I asked the user, "Are you able to access the internet?" "Yes, no issues with that." Okay, strange. Check the VPN server at the head office, no connection attempt from that office for a while, very strange. I ask if the user can find the mini rack in the corner of the office space to check the router lights through the glass door. They respond that they're all green. Weird. That particular router should have at least one red-orange one. Maybe they were looking at the server or the firewall appliance. No, they described the router as I'd expect. I asked if they could check the lights on the server. Let me call you back. Just getting another call from a customer. Click. I continued troubleshooting all I could think of, checking last access logs, etc. Nothing was showing any usage for a while, around 3 weeks. I escalate to my manager, as I'll need authorization to drive the about 600-mile round trip to check in person, as nothing is responding remotely, and the ISP is reporting no outages, etc. I had to call the customer back to perform a few more checks before being allowed to make the journey. But they were quite abrupt with their answers. Something wasn't right, but I put it down to their issues causing knock-on effects on customer relations during a contract renewal, etc. But managed to set a date and time to visit the user at the office in a few days. I got the authorization through, booked the travel, policy dictated I had to book a hotel if over a certain driving distance, and set off on the drive. Arriving at the office, the user wasn't there. I went to the building reception and went through their security processes, sign-in, etc., and get a visitor badge. Scanning the badge on the door, green light, door clicks, I push it open and switch on the light. Where are the desks? Where are the PCs and monitors? Where is the network cabinet? Where are the servers? I called down to reception to check I had the right office. I called my boss to check I had the right office. I did. Explaining the situation, my boss alerts the user's manager. They pass my boss on to HR. It turns out that someone in finance had caught wind of a strange situation with the user's fuel card and opened an investigation. The user was filling up with more fuel than their company car could hold, i.e., their fuel tank was 60 liters. They were claiming 120 to 150 liters a time, and frequently. And they were found to be filling up their car, their partner's car, as well as their daughter's car. Naughty. So, dear listener, how does this relate to this user's issue with printing? Well, as part of the fraud investigations, I was asked for an inventory of the IT stuff at the office. This is because the user had been found to have eBayed basically the entire office. Fixtures, fittings, IT equipment, the lot, except for the printer. The user had thought they could have connected to it directly over the network, just like our more modern printer, fax, and copiers. And didn't realize this one still had a print server setup. Not to mention that they'd sold the router that created the network as well. So didn't even get that far and called us. They asked for me as they knew I had not dealt with them before and could play dumb with any questions. 5. I work in a call center that primarily deals with the public, with issues or queries they have, and whilst we can deal with a lot ourselves, there are a lot of things we must either log for another department to look into, or transfer them across to that department. For example, if someone calls about a broken street lamp, they get transferred across to the street lighting team, but if someone calls about a pothole, we have to log it for the highway team to fix it. Some departments don't have an internal number for the caller to get transferred across to, or a number we can call to speak to that department. And one of those departments is the enforcement department. Of all the systems and departments we use and liaise with, the trickiest one we deal with is the enforcement system. Basically ranging from food safety to the environment, there were multiple teams that enforce things. And all these issues had to be logged on this system. For example, if someone called to report their neighbor for being too loud, that had to get logged on the system for the noise enforcement team to investigate. But we had to arrange for letters to be sent out about it. If someone reported an abandoned car, we logged it, and the environment enforcement team went out to investigate. If someone said they got food poisoning from a restaurant, we logged it, and the food safety team investigated it, and so on. The reason why it was so tricky was because if you missed a step, it didn't get logged properly, or it didn't go to the correct team, which meant that someone would complain to your manager about it, and crucially, this was a legal system, which meant that if the issue escalated to court, whatever you wrote in your notes could be used in the court proceedings. This wasn't a second-nature, eyes-closed kind of system. You needed to be concentrating, because something you log can bite you in the ass a month later. For example, when someone calls to say they haven't received a letter, but it turns out you didn't send it in the first place. The way it worked was that a case was logged, which meant that it was open, and it got assigned to an officer, like pulling a name out of a hat, and throughout the time that it was open, if someone called back to give you more information about the case, you could update it, and that update went directly to the investigating officer. And then when the investigation had finished, the case was closed with that officer. Basically, once a case was assigned to an officer, they had to see it through from start to finish. Whether it was deciding if a noise complaint was justified, or going through black bags that were reported as fly tipping to see if they could find anything that tied someone to that rubbish, and so on. It wasn't as simple as that, though, because there were cases that had been open for years with multiple updates. There were multiple cases that had been opened and closed between the same properties for the same reasons. Or someone had called about something and you weren't 100% sure if it should be logged or not, etc. I'm not sure how my colleagues dealt with those situations, but whenever I got a call like that, I just emailed the investigating officer just to explain the situation and ask for advice, and CC'd in their colleagues just in case the investigating officer was off. Or I just emailed my team to ask if they wanted me to log it as a new case or not, since if it was an ongoing situation with multiple cases for the same thing, many officers may have dealt with it, and they may not have wanted me to log it as a new case. I didn't see an issue with it because they either emailed me back with an answer or they didn't reply, but logged it themselves after they looked into it. But one day I got a thorny email from a thornier senior environmental officer, basically telling me off and telling me not to send them emails anymore, because the system was there to be used. I emailed him back, explaining that it wasn't that simple because there were tricky cases that I needed help with, and I didn't want to update an old case or log a case if I didn't need to not unnecessarily add to the caseloads of the officers. And he replied back reiterating that I shouldn't send any more emails, and finished it off by telling me to either update the case whether it was open or closed, or open a new case. Cue malicious compliance. From that day forward, I did not send another email. If I got a call about an issue, and the last time the issue was raised is 2017, I updated the 2017 case. If I was on the fence about logging something as a new case or not, I just logged it anyway. If I checked the last case and the investigating officer had left, I updated it anyway. I was unaware of this, but when I told people that the investigating officer would call them back, like they typically did after we asked them to in our updates, they would call us a couple of weeks later to ask why they hadn't received a call, and my colleagues would have to raise a new case for them because the one I updated was closed. The officers also suddenly had an influx of new cases because every time I updated a closed case, it reopened, which added to their caseload. The system they used worked on dates and caseloads. For example, if I asked them to call someone or inspect a property in my update, the system generated a time frame for them to complete that action by, but if they were too busy to do something I'd asked them to do, it went red, which counted against them. Also, for example, if they had 4 open cases, and they closed 3 and they'd gone down to 1, they'd go back up to 4 again if I updated 3 of their old cases. So based on the system, they were not doing their jobs properly because they constantly had open cases. This put their stats through the floor. This went on for ages, and one day I was hauled into an office by my manager, and waiting for me was his manager, the senior enforcement officer, his manager, an HR advisor for me and HR. They told me that I was doing call avoidance, gross misconduct, purposely misadvising callers and not triaging calls correctly. From what they were saying and the paperwork they had with them, I knew it was a "you're fired" meeting. HR asked me if there was anything I wanted to say. So I looked at the enforcement officer, pointed at the senior enforcement officer and said, "You told me to do it." The enforcement manager looked at me, looked at the senior enforcement manager, looked at me again, and then asked me to clarify what I meant. I explained it all from start to finish, making it clear that when I was sending emails, I always asked for advice and offered to log a case for the enforcement team if they wanted me to. And that before the email to the senior enforcement officer, my emails were either not replied to, but someone logged it for me, or someone replied to me to tell me log a new case or to not log a new case. The enforcement manager sighed, and then asked me if I could send him that email, so I quickly left, went back to my desk, sent the email thread to him, and came back into the office. He read the email, sighed deeper than he did before, and then asked us all to leave, but asked the senior enforcement officer to stay. And I laughed with a massive shit-eating grin on my face because I knew that I would keep my job. The fallout was pretty big, because the IT team had to go in and manually close all the open cases so that the stats for the enforcement officers would go back to normal. The payroll department had to backdate all the months that the stats were messed up so that the performance bonus matched what would have happened had I not put their stats down. I didn't know they had performance bonuses until afterwards, and the senior enforcement officer got demoted to an enforcement officer, based on their new email signature. A couple of weeks later, when the enforcement manager was less busy, he emailed me to basically say that he gives me permission to go back to emailing the enforcement team about cases. But I should use my own judgment. If I think I could justifiably get away with not logging something onto the system, as in I could explain to my manager why I didn't think it should have been logged, then I shouldn't log it. And that logic would cut down the amount of emails I had to send to the enforcement teams. No one got fired, but someone got demoted, and a lot of work happened in the background to fix what I did. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Please Hold, episode 24. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do press the like button. That is very helpful to this channel. Okay, let's see. I think I have a little shout out to do today. Shout out goes to the author of story number 3. And their Reddit handle is throwaway520054. So thank you very much for allowing us to use your story. Right, I don't think there's any other business today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: if you ever find yourself stranded on a desert island, but it's not made of sand, what is it made of? Assuming I'm still able to build a shelter of some kind, because it's going to rain eventually, I'd like it to be made of velvet, because that'd feel very, very nice to walk on. Let me know what you think in a comment below. With that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.